2013 version. What we're going to do is we're going to go through some notes on the Constitutional Convention. This gives you an opportunity to kind of stop along the way, take some notes, pause if you need to. I'm also going to interject some questions along the way, so kind of go at your own pace. All right, so you're hopefully going to watch this after you've learned about the Constitutional or the Articles of Confederation and kind of what brought us to Philadelphia in the first place for the convention. Okay, at the convention, all right, we're here to revise the Articles of Confederation and start a brand new government. But there's several splits that are going to take place that we're going to focus on. The most important split's going to be the big states versus the small states, with the idea of over-representation, who should control our government. Then you're going to have a slave and a non-slave split. This is not going to be a split over the abolition of slavery, but more or less about the economic issues of slavery. We'll get into that in a little bit. Then you're going to have a group that wants a strong central government. Those are the ones that kind of want to revise the Articles. They're going to be led by James Madison and Alexander Hamilton. And then you're going to have a number of people for a strong state government, which kind of maintains what we had under the Articles of Confederation in the first place. There's going to be liberals versus conservatives. The conservatives are kind of going to cling to the states' rights and cling to the existing government, not embrace change much, and you're going to see some liberals that are going to really want the big government philosophy. And then the last split is going to be the imports versus the exports. Most of your southern agricultural states are going to be export driven, and your northern manufacturing states are going to rely on the imports from Europe. So there are going to be issues over navigation and things like that. All right, so a question I throw out at you. This is right off the AP exam. Unlike the Articles of Confederation, the Constitution does which of the following? I'll give you a second to pause it. Take a look at the answers. And the correct answer would be E, that it emphasizes both national sovereignty, which gives you the strong national government, and federalism, which embraces the states' rights philosophy as well. You'll note the Articles of Confederation restricted the ability to tax and raise an army and a navy. And a unitary form of government is what you see in England, where there are one level of government. In a federalist country like ours, we have two levels of government that way. All right? And D is also a good descriptor of the Articles of Confederation. All right, how many houses exist in a bicameral legislature? This should be an easy one for you. Anytime you have bi in front of a word, we know that's going to mean two. So our first compromise is going to deal with the bicameral legislature. All right, so when the convention opens, James Madison comes to the floor and proposes what's known as the Virginia Plan. Actually, it was proposed by Edmund Randolph because Madison was very shy and quiet and didn't like to speak. But he did have the idea. It was his philosophy to come up with a strong national government, and he sort of laid the groundwork. All right, this Virginia Plan would have three separate levels of government: a legislative to make the laws, an executive to enforce the laws, and a judicial to judge the laws. Those are very key concepts you're going to have to know moving forward. You should remember that from your elementary school days. All right, the Congress itself, which would be your legislature, is going to have two houses. So there's the bicameral component, a House of Representatives and a Senate. However, both houses under his plan would be based on population. And it was roughly about one representative for every 30,000 people. The smallest state had 60,000, so this was the idea of every state at least having two representatives. And then the voters in the states would select the House members. So there's your popular sovereignty component where the people decide. And the Senate would be then chosen by the state legislature. So we could restrict the people in the Senate. So you have two different houses, but they're chosen differently. Continuing on with the Virginia Plan, Congress would have all the powers it had under the Articles, but then it could also override any state laws. So in a sense, this plan nixes the state lines and really just makes one big national government. The Congress would choose the judicial branch, and it would also choose the president. So the people were extremely limited under his plan, that you could just choose the representatives. Remember, we were distrustful of the people. There were a lot of poor and middle class, they didn't want to have the authority to vote. So these other branches would sort of be there to check the people. Those who feared a strong national government didn't like the Virginia plan because it gave Congress too much authority. The smaller states especially, they didn't like that representation based on population. Virginia had about 900,000 people, so under that plan, you're talking they're going to have close to 30 representatives, and a state like Delaware is going to have 2. So you can see why the objection would take place. All right, now, the Virginia plan was defeated, and up comes the New Jersey plan. Well, let's ask you this question. How many houses exist in a unicameral legislature? If you're familiar with a unicorn or a unicycle, you obviously know the answer is 1. Okay. The New Jersey plan, I'm going to wrap this up with this one and move on to record another lecture here in a second. The New Jersey plan gets proposed by William Patterson, and it basically looked just like the Articles of Confederation. He wanted to go with 1 vote per state, so everything would be equal, just like under the Articles. All right, so New Jersey and Delaware would have the same as Virginia and New York. Congress would have that 1 house or unicameral legislature, and that would be elected by the state, not the people. So there would be no people voting under this New Jersey plan. And Congress would choose several people to serve in the executive. There's that fear of the king that we saw in the Declaration in colonial times. We didn't trust a king. We didn't want one ruler, so there was going to be a committee to enforce the laws, and then they would then appoint the judicial branch. So a lot less removal from the people, but a lot more state sovereignty there. All right, we're going to stop here. All right, and these are your New Jersey and Virginia plans. Actually, I'm going to keep going. Forget that. Because we need to know the answer to this question, which is how did we solve this problem? We had a New Virginia plan the small states didn't want. We have a New Jersey plan the big states didn't want. Neither of them were passing. You got to remember there's only 12 states at the Constitutional Convention at any one time, so you needed 7 states to approve anything. So a vote of 6-6 got nothing done. So the answer here is the Great Compromise. Your book's also going to call it the Connecticut Compromise, which established the House and the Senate. All right. The purpose of the House of Representatives was, I'll give you a chance to look at these answers. This is crucial. This will appear on the AP exam probably as well. And the answer is D. It was to represent the majority, because it's going to have representation based on population, therefore the majority, and it's going to be chosen by the voters of the state. So there's a direct people component as well. Okay, so your House is going to represent the majority. All right. Also, another question here is the U.S. Constitution is a pro-slavery document. All right, that's a trick question. We can make an argument on both sides, so we might ask you that one again after we listen. All right, we'll stop here. All right, and then I'm going to start up another one just to give you a break.